mysterious death of one of Hollywood's most alluring actresses. Natalie Wood allegedly drowned in 1981, and her death was originally ruled an accident.
Robert Wagner has finally spoken out, revealing haunting details about the mysterious death of Natalie Wood, his stunning wife who once ruled Hollywood. In his latest interview, Wagner sat in silence for a moment before his shaky voice broke through, full of regret. It seemed like just an old man's confession, until viewers noticed something chilling. He mentioned details that never appeared in the original case files. What has he been hiding all these years? "I knew a storm was coming," he said softly, staring down at his trembling hands, "but I still agreed to let everyone go." His words hit like thunder. He wasn't only talking about the weather that tragic night. He was talking about the storm that destroyed everything, including the woman he loved most, Natalie Wood. That morning, KABC warned of brutal winds and dangerous waves near Catalina Island. Captain Dennis Davern tried to stop the trip, warning, "This weather isn't good." But Wagner stayed cold, whispering, "Go ahead, I want some quiet." Yet, deep down, those close to him knew. He didn't want peace. He wanted answers. Just weeks earlier, rumors had flooded Hollywood about Natalie and her co-star Christopher Walken. A photo from the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner showed Walken's hand resting on Natalie's shoulder, with a caption that hinted there was a strange energy, artistic and a little dangerous. Within days, that photo of Natalie Wood and Christopher Walken hit every newsstand from Beverly Hills to New York. And once again, Robert Wagner found himself painted as the jealous husband under Hollywood's spotlight. They'd been one of Hollywood's golden couples, first married in 1957, divorced, then remarried a decade later like a real-life movie plot. Vanity Fair once called them a softer version of Liz Taylor and Richard Burton. But behind the glamorous smiles, small cracks were spreading fast. Wagner's career was fading, while Natalie, after years of motherhood, was glowing again, full of energy and ready to make her comeback in Brainstorm. Christopher Walken, her charming co-star, had just come off his Oscar win for The Deer Hunter, and he had that quiet confidence that drew people in. On set, he and Natalie were seen having deep talks over lunch, laughing, connecting, and people noticed. One crew member even said, "He looked at her in a way that would make any husband jealous." When a reporter caught them dining alone in Wilmington, the media exploded. Headlines screamed, "Wood and Walken, when friendship moves past the frame." Wagner read it, slammed his glass down, and muttered, "Is she not my wife anymore?" He forbade anyone from even saying Walken's name. Natalie wrote quietly in her diary, "Bob is jealous. Maybe he's just scared of losing me." Days later, Wagner announced a family getaway. But instead of peace, he chose the sea, Natalie's lifelong fear. Captain Davern prepared the yacht Splendor. Shockingly, Wagner invited Walken too, claiming, "I want everything to be clear." That gray November afternoon, the three boarded the boat, and from that moment, there wasn't just a storm in the sky. There was one brewing between them. He had fame, love, and what looked like peace, but within 24 hours on Catalina Island, a single drink would shatter it all. That night, November 28, 1981, Avalon Harbor shimmered under early Christmas lights, jazz echoing from the bars. Yet on Wagner's yacht Splendor, the calm felt fake, like the quiet before a fight. Captain Dennis Davern said Wagner had already downed half a bottle of 18-year Glenfiddich by sunset, staring blankly toward the sea while Natalie read Harper's Bazaar and Walken smoked quietly on deck. Everything seemed peaceful until dinner. At Doug's Harbor Reef, the island's favorite seafood spot, things started smooth. Lobster, white wine, laughter, the perfect Hollywood night. But as Walken talked about art and living by ideals, Wagner's smile faded fast. Natalie agreed with Walken, and that's when Wagner cut in sharply. "Not everyone can live by ideals, Chris." The air froze. A waitress remembered Natalie gently touching his shoulder, trying to calm him. But that only made it worse. Wagner finished his drink, threw down his napkin, and hissed, "Some people should remember I'm still her husband." The whole restaurant went dead silent. By 9:30, they left. Wagner muttered to the cashier, "I'm covering everything. Don't let anyone else." Natalie's eyes were red. Walken avoided looking at him, and the dock wind sliced through the night. On the ride back, Captain Davern said not a word was spoken, only the sound of waves hitting the hull, and Wagner's heavy breathing in the dark. The air on the Splendor had turned heavy, thick with tension and booze. Natalie sat at the bow, her scarf pulled tight, while Walken smoked silently at the stern, eyes lost in the black water. Once aboard, Wagner dimmed the lights, leaving only one small lamp glowing. He poured drinks for 3, but drank them all himself. Captain Davern said the silence was suffocating. Natalie finally snapped, "Enough, Bob!" But Wagner wasn't listening anymore. He turned to Walken, voice low at first, then sharp. "You think you understand her? You're breaking up someone else's marriage." Walken tried to stay calm, but Wagner wasn't the polished star people knew. He slammed the bottle down hard. Glass shattered across the table. Natalie screamed, trembling, "Enough, Bob!" Walken left the room without a word, retreating to his cabin. Natalie turned toward the deck, desperate to breathe, but Davern said Wagner blocked him from following her, muttering coldly, "She needs quiet." Later, investigators found broken glass everywhere. One cup still marked with red lipstick, the shade Natalie always wore. Years later, in his haunting final interview, Wagner whispered, "I thought she needed quiet, but really, I was the one who needed it." From that moment, silence replaced truth, and Natalie Wood's mysterious disappearance began. The next morning, November 29, 1981, Catalina's waters were filled with police boats. At 8:15 a.m., Officer Roger Smith radioed in, "We've found a woman's body."
Robert Wagner has been named a person of interest in the death of his wife, legendary actress Natalie Wood.
It was Natalie Wood, floating face down, dressed in a nightgown, red coat, and socks. Clothes no one would ever choose for a midnight stroll. Nearby, her dinghy bobbed quietly, engine off, as if no one had ever used it. When the young officers arrived, one whispered, "This doesn't look like an accident. It looks staged." Inside the Splendor, Robert Wagner sat calmly in the cabin, face unreadable, voice steady. His official statement was brief and chillingly precise. "Around midnight, I heard the dinghy hit the hull. Natalie said she'd check the rope. I thought she came back to bed. In the morning, she was gone." He spoke smoothly, no shaking, no hesitation. To some officers, he seemed too composed, like a man performing grief rather than feeling it. But no one dared question a Hollywood legend that night. By November 30th, the report was closed. Police Chief Ronald Brown wrote, "No evidence of crime." All witnesses had been drinking. Accident case dismissed. But truth doesn't stay buried forever. Captain Dennis Davern, the only other person still awake that night, first told police, "Everyone was drunk. I went to bed early." But years later, he changed his story, admitting to journalist Marty Roth, "I didn't sleep. I heard them arguing. Something fell, then silence. I was scared to speak. I knew who he was." Christopher Walken stayed silent too. In LAPD files, he said, "I heard them argue, then went to my room. I don't know anything else." Decades later, in Playboy, he called it a tragedy and said, "I don't want to remember it." His answer only fueled suspicion. Soon after, NBC aired The Mystery of Natalie Wood, featuring a couple, Marilyn Wayne and John Payne, who swore they'd heard a woman screaming for help that night, and that no one answered. "Help me! Someone help me!" 3 desperate cries echoed across the dark water around 11 p.m., followed by a man's voice replying, "All right, darling, we're coming." Then, silence. Police brushed it off. No solid proof it was Natalie. But to the public, the story didn't sit right. 2 days later, People magazine dropped a cover story. Robert Wagner, Hollywood's broken heart. The photo showed him in a black suit, teary-eyed, clutching Natalie's framed portrait. America grieved with him. Hollywood sighed in relief. Officially, it was ruled an accident at sea. But behind the paperwork, one note in the coroner's file stood out. Dr. Michael Franco quietly wrote, "Fresh bruises on wrists, knees, and forearms. Pre-mortem." That clue stayed buried for decades, until the case reopened in 2011. In a later interview, Wagner admitted, "They said I was too calm, but inside, I felt nothing. I couldn't look at her. I just thought, it's over." Then, after a long pause, he confessed, "I built a story because the world was watching. If I said we argued, they'd blame me. I lied to stay strong, but in the mirror, I saw only a coward." Ever since that night, Wagner's lived haunted, not just by rumors, but by the woman he could never forget. "She still comes back on nights I can't sleep," he whispered. By the 1990s, the once golden movie star lived quietly in his Beverly Hills mansion, the same house he once shared with Natalie. The walls were lined with old photos. Natalie in her Rebel Without a Cause dress, their smiling wedding portrait, a Cadillac from their glory days. To him, they weren't memories anymore. They were reminders of love, of guilt, and of everything left unsaid. Around 3 a.m., footsteps would echo through Robert Wagner's mansion. The lights flicked on and staff said they could hear him whispering softly, like he was talking to someone who wasn't there. Some nights, he'd open the window, stare toward the Pacific, and murmur, "I still hear you calling, Nat. I hear it." Therapy records later revealed that Dr. Leonard Klein, a Los Angeles PTSD specialist, diagnosed Wagner with trauma rooted in guilt. One chilling line written in Wagner's own handwriting read, "Natalie still comes. She's soaking wet, holding a kitchen knife. I wake up and smell the ocean." When that note leaked, the press exploded. The Los Angeles Times called it the return of the Catalina Shadow. People magazine printed a full feature, "The Man Who Can't Sleep and the Wife Who Never Fades." Some said it proved his guilt. Others believed he was simply haunted, not by Natalie's ghost, but by his own conscience. Actress Jill St. John shared in 1994, "Bob would wake up yelling, 'Don't come near me.' He swore he saw her, hair wet, eyes wide." When asked, Wagner admitted quietly, "I don't believe in ghosts, but every time I close my eyes, I see her standing in the water. Maybe it's not her. Maybe it's the part of me that can't rest." "I once loved the sea," he said softly. "Now it feels like my graveyard." The guilt never left him. Through the 1990s, tabloids kept dragging up the case. The National Enquirer hinted police might reopen it. The Hollywood Reporter claimed Walken said something. His daughter, Natasha Gregson Wagner, later recalled in HBO's Natalie Wood, "What remains behind?" "Every time I visited, he was sitting in front of Mom's photo. Once I saw tears rolling down his face. He whispered, 'I still hear her voice, Natty. Maybe she hasn't forgiven me.' No one knows if it was grief or ghosts, but one thing was clear. Robert Wagner never escaped that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the sea and her standing in it. By his 70s, Robert Wagner barely left the house. The housekeeper said he still wiped the dust from Natalie's framed photo every morning, kissed its corner, and whispered, "She still comes back every night, in the wind, in the mirror, in the waves. No one hears it, only I do." After decades of silence, the memories finally became too heavy. Wagner decided to seek forgiveness the only way he knew how, by writing it all down. But the more he wrote, the more ghosts he stirred. Hollywood soon realized the man once called the perfect gentleman hadn't slept peacefully in 40 years. "I wrote my memoir to be forgiven," he confessed, "but it only exposed more of my fault." In 2008, Wagner reappeared, not in a movie, but in bookstores. His memoir, Pieces of My Heart, published by Random House, hit the shelves that September. The cover showed a young Wagner, blue eyes, half smile, but behind that calm face lay decades of guilt. In the preface, he wrote, "This is my journey of love, mistakes, and longing." Hollywood buzzed. Was he finally ready to tell the truth? "I couldn't carry it forever," he said. "I wrote to be forgiven. I loved Natalie to the point of selfishness. I was jealous, and I was wrong." The book shared stories of his childhood, friendships with legends like Dean Martin, Cary Grant, and Elizabeth Taylor. But when he reached that fateful night, November 29, 1981, the tone changed. "We had been drinking," he wrote. "We argued, and then fate chose the rest." In a chapter titled For Natalie, Wagner called her the most beautiful pain of my life. He described signing the papers at the coroner's office, admitting, "I didn't dare look at her face. I was afraid it would tell me something I couldn't bear." His voice trembled. It was the only passage readers said felt real. But just a week later, Hollywood's silence shattered. Natalie's sister, Lana Wood, went on Larry King Live and declared, "He doesn't dare say it, but every line is a confession." She even pointed to a small but chilling detail everyone else missed. In Chapter 13, Wagner wrote, "I heard a strange sound on deck, then silence." Lana looked straight into the camera and said, "That's silence. That's where the truth is hiding." That strange sound Wagner wrote about, Lana Wood claimed it was the moment Natalie fell into the water. And the silence after? The moment he chose not to act. Her words hit Hollywood like a lightning bolt. Within days, the media went wild. Exhausted from years of therapy, Wagner broke under the weight of renewed suspicion. He canceled all 12 book signings in LA, Chicago, New York, and Dallas. Random House released a short statement. "Mr. Wagner needs rest." In a private note later leaked, Wagner admitted, "I thought I'd feel lighter after writing, but each time I reread it, I see myself more bare. I opened a door that should have stayed closed. I no longer know what's truth or what's the story I've told myself for 40 years." That haunting confession, never meant for the public, reignited the storm. Those vague phrases, by strange sound, "Fate chose the rest," caught the LAPD's attention. Nearly 30 years after the tragedy, the Natalie Wood case was suddenly reopened. In November 2011, a police statement read, "New information from the memoir and witness testimony suggests the incident may not have been accidental." And just like that, Robert Wagner, once America's grieving husband, became a person of interest in one of Hollywood's darkest mysteries. Then came the moment that shook it all again. On NBC's Today Show, the guest wasn't a journalist. It was Captain Dennis Davern, the only man still alive who was there that night. Looking straight into the camera, voice trembling, he said, "Robert Wagner did not tell the truth." He didn't share everything that happened on that boat. Within hours, The LAPD held an emergency press conference. Lieutenant John Carina confirmed, "We're reopening the Natalie Wood file. New evidence demands a full review." For the first time in nearly 30 years, Robert Wagner's name returned to headlines, not as the heartbroken widower, but as a man shadowed by a mystery that refused to stay buried. Robert Wagner, grieving husband, guilty figure, or victim of his own story. At 81, he faced the very storm he thought had sunk with the Catalina waves decades earlier. One December evening, LAPD officers came knocking at his Beverly Hills mansion with a summons. According to records, Wagner looked through the doorframe, paused, and said quietly, "I have nothing left to say. Words mean nothing now." He refused to testify, sending only a statement through his lawyer. That night was an accident. Nothing more. I have nothing to add. But Captain Dennis Davern didn't stay silent. In his 2011 tell-all book, Goodbye Natalie, Goodbye Splendor, he described a far darker night. Wagner angry, smashing a bottle, glass flying, and Natalie screaming before disappearing. Davern claimed Wagner told him, "Don't turn on the lights. Don't call anyone." His story matched whispers that Hollywood had buried for decades. In 2013, the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office dropped a bombshell. The word accident was officially crossed out, replaced with drowning and undetermined factors. They confirmed multiple fresh bruises on Natalie's wrists, knees, and arms, all before she entered the water. The revelation reignited the mystery and turned Wagner once again into America's most questioned man. The last man with her. TV specials exploded across every network: Dateline NBC, 48 Hours Mystery, Inside Edition, all dissecting the night aboard the Splendor. FBI expert Dr. Mark Safarik summed it up best. "Silence lasting 3 decades isn't forgetting, it's fear of exposure." When reporters pressed Wagner again in Malibu in 2014, he only smiled faintly and said, "People want a confession, but sometimes silence is all I have left." Even his family divided over the truth. Lana Wood, Natalie's sister, kept saying, "Police never truly listened. Hollywood protected him. I know he could have done something." Meanwhile, Wagner's daughter, Natasha Gregson Wagner, took another route, producing HBO's Natalie Wood, What Remains Behind in 2020, a tribute meant to honor her mother's memory and defend her father's name. The HBO film was shot inside the very house Robert Wagner had lived in for over 40 years. The opening scene showed him sitting in the living room, surrounded by photos of Natalie. The light dim, his face aged and weary. Natasha gently asked, "Dad, is there anything you'd want to say to Mom?" Wagner paused for several seconds before whispering, "I didn't cause her death, but I didn't save her either." The world froze. Some saw his words as a quiet confession, others as guilt twisted into sorrow. LAPD kept the file open, and after a decade of reinvestigation, in April 2022, Lieutenant Ben Sheriff finally announced, "Insufficient evidence for charges. All leads pursued." Then he added, "We can't prove a crime, but some people will live with guilt forever." After that, Wagner vanished from the spotlight. He stopped doing interviews, appearing only beside Natasha at small private events. But one final line, whispered during a later interview, reignited the entire story. He said softly, "I don't remember if I pushed her into the water, but I know I was the reason she left." The room went silent. Under the fading studio light, Wagner sat trembling, his once golden Hollywood glow replaced by something raw and human. "There's one story I could never tell completely," he said, "but now there's no one left to hear it." When asked if he felt misunderstood, Wagner gave a faint smile and said, "No. People understood correctly. I just never said enough." He sighed deeply. "I lied to protect my honor. I thought the truth could wait. But it never waits." He closed his eyes, his fingers twitching as if counting memories. "I remember the wind," he said. "She was close. Maybe I said something that made her walk away. Maybe I went too far. Then I heard the water, a small splash. To this day, I don't know if it was her or me." Finally, Wagner looked straight into the camera and whispered, "I don't regret loving her. I only regret letting anger choose for me." No one in the studio spoke. The crew stood frozen, watching a man haunted by the echo of his own choices. As the cameras rolled their last seconds, he placed his cup down and murmured, "I didn't push her into the water. I only pushed her out of my life. But maybe I've followed her ever since." After that shoot, Wagner disappeared from public life completely. Only that haunting footage remained, and his final words, "I don't remember if I pushed her into the water, but I know I was the reason she left." 40 years later, the truth about Natalie Wood and Robert Wagner still drifts like a ghost over Hollywood's waters. Was it an accident or a tragedy hidden behind love's mask? Let us know what you believe in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to America's Hidden Gold for more unbelievable true stories.